Hey everyone, today we're going to cover workflows for getting started with vehicle modeling in Maya. This is a new series where I will be covering vehicle modeling from beginning to end. This video will cover how to approach one of the biggest challenges in 3D modeling, which is how to go from 2D reference to a 3D model that is accurate from all angles. This series will include a combination of high-level concepts, workflows, and step-by-step techniques, and is targeted for beginner to advanced skills in 3D modeling. Maya 2022 will be used for this tutorial, but the workflows can be applied to any 3D software as well as any version of Maya. So with that, let's get started. Alright, so here we are in Maya, and as you can see here, I have a blockout version of the vehicle I will be modeling for this series. Now, I will be using a 1972 Datsun 240Z for this tutorial and series, but keep in mind, you can apply these techniques to any vehicle that you're modeling. All right. Now, the first thing that you're going to want to do is find as much reference as you possibly can for the vehicle that you're going to be modeling. So the first thing is definitely head to the internet and find whatever reference you can of the specific vehicle. I just typed in 1972 Datsun 240Z, and I'm going to find all sorts of reference for the vehicle. Now keep in mind, this specific vehicle also gets modded quite a bit, so you'll see some variations of it, but the overall body is consistent through all modifications. So find one that interests you, that you want to model, find the reference, and go from there. Here you can see I'm going to be using this reference here of the Datsun 240Z. And once you've nailed this down, you're then going to want to find some blueprints. Now, don't forget that you want to make sure to compile all of your reference into a tool called PureRef. So here's PureRef, and this is just this floating window here. Just right click to move the window, middle mouse drag, or middle mouse scroll to zoom in, and then you can left click and zoom. And the nice thing about this is I can zoom in and just really get into these high resolution images and see all the detail that I need to see. And I have all the varying angles, and you'll see that I've also included some different versions of the modded 240Z. And I can continue to build this up if I find more reference that interests me. So this is where I'm going to compile all of my reference. And as you're gathering reference, make sure, if you can, get as much reference from different angles that's going to help you, put this vehicle in Maya and your 3D software and make sure that it looks good from all angles. And especially from a lighting standpoint too, this is going to be helpful. All right. The next thing is, if possible, try to find some blueprints. All right. I just simply went to the blueprints.com, and you'll see if you type in your vehicle, you'll be able to find the, different versions of vehicles, different model years, and all of that. So you can see if I go here to, the blueprints and then type in Datsun 240Z, that I'll be able to maybe find something, or I want to make sure to put in a space for that, right? So there we go. So you can see that, and they have the different versions and different years and different resolutions and all that, and you can pay to get really, really high resolutions and whatnot. But the one that I specifically used was just kind of this one down here, which was this Datsun 240Z, which was a decent resolution, which is going to work great. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if I actually open this blueprint reference here, you'll see that there are some challenges, and it's not perfect, but it's going to give me a good start. Is that these are different scales, like the front, you can tell by the size of the wheels, isn't lined up with the size of the wheels of the side view. The top view is very large. So it looks like this was taken and cropped from some sort of manual, and it wasn't made to be one-to-one in all the views. So you're going to have to keep that in mind. This, after all, is just reference. So we're going to have to use these as a guide to help us within 3D. All right. The next thing that you're going to want to do is find your dimensions of your vehicle, right? So I'm just going to look online, find dimensions of the vehicle, and then you can eventually find something that's going to give you the length, width, and height. You could also use wheelbase, that's from front wheel to rear wheel, but this is going to give us what we need to set this up inside of Maya. Okay, so you can see here, now if I jump back to Maya, I have the reference images already set up, Okay, now you can also see that I have this camera set up with a perspective view, so I'll show you how to set that up as well. I do have very straightforward videos that show you how to set up image plane reference, so you can take a look at that if you want to just come back and find that. But to set up a specific reference in an orthographic view, you would simply go to the camera that you want to, or that you need, the orthographic camera. So in this case, it's going to be front. I can actually simply delete this right now. And once I have this cleared, you can simply hit this icon, which is image plane, and it's going to then ask you, hey, what image do you want to pull in? So you say .sun240Z, here's my blueprints, great. I go ahead and put that in, and then now it's going to come in here, and you can see it's going to be small. Now the key thing is I already have this cube here that is my scale reference. This is the scale reference of the dimensions that I found online. So I just typed in those dimensions here on this cube, and then what I do is I just go ahead and then scale up my reference to the size of this scale reference cube. And then I move and position this and do everything that I need to do to, get this working properly. Then you can kind of see that it's also in the middle. You can also just simply move that back. And the other setting that I typically use is depth, where you can maybe type in 1500 depth, and you can see that also will push that back in your orthographic views there. But you can simply move that out. And I'm going to actually just undo that and then bring mine back to its original state. And I'm just going to do that for all of these orthographic views. You can see that I have this orthographic top view already set up by my default, and that's already here. All right, so everything's set up, everything's moved in position, and I have everything to scale based off of this scale reference. Okay, now the next thing that I recommend that you always do is find your reference, find some good reference, and then do your best to try to actually camera match that inside of Maya or your software. So if I go here to the panels, and then I go from perspective, you see that I have this camera called camera match. So I will go ahead and maximize this viewport, hit perspective, and hit camera match. All right. Now you can also see that I make use quite a bit of layers. I'm actually going to put my channel box right here, and I have ref layer, and I'm going to just hide this with the ref layer, or you can simply grab your image planes. So if I take these, I can simply group these, and I'm going to just do image planes. Okay, and I will hide those. Now you can see that I have this perspective matched camera, or as close as I can get to it. Now, if I go ahead and hide this geometry, so you can see this camera, all I did was simply load in the image plane, just like I did previously. So if I go ahead and load that in, you can see that it's just gonna, if I select this actually, and you can see that it's just a perspective matched, or just a perspective image of the image plane. Okay, now here's the thing, is how do we actually match the perspective? You can see that I'm pretty close here, which is nice. And obviously this is modded version. I just did kind of the front grille without having these front air dams set up. But for now, this gave me enough to camera match this. So how do I go about that, right? Is you want to make sure to use a tool like F-Spy. Okay, so here's F-Spy because I need to pull in or at least gather some sort of camera information. Otherwise, I'm just going to be guessing inside of Maya. Now, I have a tutorial where I cover the whole F-Spy to Blender to Maya workflow. But for this one, because I have this image plane, not this image plane, excuse me, but this ground plane, all I'm really trying to get out of here is this focal length. So what I ended up doing was, so if you see if I don't dim this image here, you can see that I'm using this ground plane. So I'm using at least as much of this horizontal ground plane here. And I have it going to about right here to the end of the driveway. And then I have these lines guiding it here. I cover how to use F-Spy in more detail, so make sure to check out that tutorial if you've never used it before. But if I go ahead actually, and I just, move these points here, you can see that the camera and these points are going to start shifting. Okay, so I already have that pretty much set up where I wanted to, and where I landed was somewhere between, 45 and 55 focal length for this camera or for this image. And you definitely want to find images that you can use and have as guides. Obviously, if I go ahead and take a look at my PureRef reference, some of these aren't really going to be helpful. Yeah, I have kind of this horizontal line, this horizon line, but that's not really going to help me camera match anything. So this one here worked really great. Like maybe even this one from a rear view, you can put this in. Having these lines, these vertical lines going through your reference are perfect for camera matching. So you can bring those inside of Maya. Now, all I actually did is I didn't even have to bring it in through Blender, was that once I brought in this image plane, I just create a plane that's essentially the size of the ground. So if I go here, you can see I have this, and I'll Shift H, show that. You can see that this is what I'm using for the ground plane. So I'm using this, and I'm using these lines here to help as a guide, and the width of the driveway. And I'm then going to go to camera attribute editors, and this is where I typed in the focal length. By default, Maya is going to be 35, and when I was trying to use 35, it really wasn't working out, and it was not giving me the results that I needed. But again, I'm doing this by eye, so I ended up using something like 45 to 50, and then using that is going to help you really position your images with your vehicle. All right. One thing to keep in mind is that even if you look at the front wheel in relation to this rear wheel, you can see that there's not a lot of distortion, which means that they are using a narrow camera lens. All right. So they're using a longer camera lens for this. So I would imagine easily something 45, 50 or higher. Okay. If they were using something that the front wheel was much wider than the rear wheel or so on and so forth, then they're definitely using a wider lens. So that led me to believe that, yes, I'm going to want to stick around 45 and 50, at least to start. Now, I already have this already set up. I have a bookmark, and I can just click that back and then go ahead and lock it. Now, if you've never used bookmarks before, you can just edit bookmarks, open up this window, position this, hit new bookmark, and if you accidentally move it, you just double click on that bookmark and it's going to take you back. So I have focal length 45 final after I did a few tests there. So that's how I would set that up, using this focal length and using this ground plane to make sure that everything's kind of aligned properly. And then I have these wheels, these little proxy wheels, just to kind of help. Okay, now keep in mind, you're probably not going to have a vehicle right out the gate. So I did this with just this ground plane to start, and then I went ahead and started modeling the vehicle. Okay, so this is going to definitely help you as you're beginning the modeling process. Okay, so having this camera matched angle is going to be really, really helpful. All right, so now what we can do is I'll open up my channel box here, and I will go ahead and hide my ref layer so I can kind of take a look here. And the next thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and now start that transition. So I'm going to hide this. So we're going to start essentially from scratch. I want to go ahead now and begin the process of going from 2D to 3D. And how do we do that? If I go ahead now and select my image planes and show that, here is where I'm starting. I'm actually just going to hide this entire group here. Okay, how do we go from blueprints to 3D model? So I'll actually go back to top here for orthographic. Now, one of the things that I do and use a lot, especially when modeling vehicles from images, is to start with creating guides using curves. I typically like to use the CV curve tool. So if you go to create, curves tools, and then you can see there's CV curve tool, EP, Bezier, and some arc tools. You can use whatever tool that you want. It really doesn't matter. These are simply going to be a guide to help us transition from 2D to 3D reference. So I will simply select the CV curve tool, and you can see I actually have it on my shelf. To add tools to your shelf, if you're not sure, you can simply go here to the curve tools, hold Control Shift and left click, and then there you go. It's added it right there. I can just delete this since I already have it, and left click there, or middle mouse to move that. All right, so now that I have this tool activated, I'm going to start in the top view. And what I'm going to do is just start left clicking. I'm going to just simply start from my line of symmetry. You can see if I turn on my grid, everything's based off of the X line of symmetry, with Z being forward and X being horizontal. This is just kind of a standard that I'm always working with and that we use in the industry, and helps with rigging and physics and whatnot. So starting from here, I'll just go ahead again and just start left clicking. So I'll do 1, 2, 3, points, and you can start to see the curves start forming. And whenever I have turns and curves like this, that's where I'll make sure to at least have 3 points there. And then I can just start clicking until I get the results that I need. And I'm just going to continue on, and then I'll probably add a few more points. And here for this sharp corner, I'm going to hit another 3 points. So I'm going to 1 click, 2 click, 3 click. So you can see now I got this sharper radius, and then I'll add one right here, and then we'll end here on this line of symmetry. And you can hit Q to exit the tool, and there we go. All right, so now if we take a look at this in the side view, we've created this from the top here. So now we need to make sure that it looks fine from the side views and our other orthographic views. So I will go ahead now, drag this. You can see that if you create curves from the orthographic views, it's just going to simply put this right here on the grid plane here on the 0, 0. So now what I want to do is just move this up. And then now I need to make sure that these curves now follow from the side view. You want to make sure that it at least matches in 2 orthographic views. So I will go ahead and do Control Vertex. So just simply hold right click, Control Vertex, and then you can left marquee select, and then I can start dragging and start moving these down to more align with the shape and curvature of the body. So this is going to essentially just reach the front of the hood here, and it's going to match all the way across, and we can see we're just matching this body line as much as we can. So we get something like this. Great. So now you just want to do this, exactly what I've just showed you, over and over again, right? Just until you get some good amount of curves that gives you some good reference for 3D space, right? So if I do this maybe a couple more times, I'm not going to do it for the entire vehicle. I already have that already done. So what I can do now is let's maybe start from now the hood, or the end of the hood, to the roof, to the rear. So if I go here and I left click, and I'm just gonna left click 3 times, anywhere I have some good curvature, and up here, and we're just making our way around. And this is gonna be the main top piece of the vehicle, and we'll end up right here. Okay, so I hit Q to exit the tool. And then now let's take a look at what this looks like. Now, this is not the dead center of the vehicle. This is going to be right here, right around this window. Okay, so if I move this now, I'm going to use my top view to help here. This is going to give me a bit closer to what I want. And now if I can hold right click and grab Control Vertex, there we go. Okay, and now we're just going to move these at an angle and just making sure that we're matching and guiding this along to match the body of the vehicle. All right. So this is going to help us significantly as we make our way around. Now, one nice tool, if you're like, oh crap, I didn't, have enough points here. Like, let's say actually you can simply delete a point if you want, or if you hold right click, go to curve point, then select a point with left click again, then hold shift right click, then you can insert knot. And once you insert knot, you can re-add or add in any points that you want. So you can see here I have a decent amount of space. I'll do that again. I'll hold right click, go to curve point, left click. Okay, then hold shift right click and insert knot, and there you go. And then now I have a control vertex that I can move here that I didn't have previously. So that's just a nice quick way to easily add that. And you can see now I'm starting to get this set up and it's looking pretty good. Remember I said the scale on the front is a little bit off, so I may not even use this view. So things are looking good, and I may do just simply one more. If I'm going here, maybe just this one that just going to simply run down the center of the vehicle. So I'll grab my CV curve tool here, and this time I'm going to do it from the side view again, and I'm going to start up here, and this is going to be, again, the highest point is going to be the dead center. Okay, so you want to make sure to try to do your best to understand exactly where these points are, and you can actually middle mouse drag to move these points, and then left click, and there we go. Hit Q to exit the tool. All right, so you can see now I have this, and this is, again, this is going to help us give us a 3D representation of our 2D blueprints. This is probably the biggest challenge that people that I've seen. A lot of my students start out when they're modeling and they just start with blueprints and they just want to immediately start with poly modeling. And then all of a sudden things look off. And I say, you know, I would recommend create your guides, create your 3D curve guides. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hide these real quick and I'll show you the group that I already have. So if I show this, here we go. Take a look at that. This is a 2D curve representation of the vehicle of the Datsun, and you can see I have all the main body lines. I have the main hip line, I have the front fenders, the front grille, I have the hood scoop, and the roof, everything. And including the rear area. I have a good understanding of how this vehicle should look like in 3D space. Okay. Now, if I wanted to make adjustments, I can simply make adjustments to these curves now, and then it'll save me time down the road. But I wouldn't spend too much time on adjusting these curves. These, again, are just guides that's taking us from 2D to 3D. All right. Now that we've created guides, let's begin and look at the process of how to get to this, which is going to be planar modeling, right? Now, this is just going to be very quick because the next video, I'm going to go into much, much more detail, and we're going to start to take a look at the actual workflow for modeling. But I want to at least show you why I do this step before I jump into the detail modeling. So I can simply hit Shift right click. I can create a plane, and I can come up here. I can scale this up. And what I'll do is just set this up to 2x2 for height and width subdivisions, and rotate this 90 degrees, and I should say 90 degrees here. And we can start to put this in position, and we can start working with what we have here. So I'm going to actually start at this corner here. I'm actually going to start with this being 1. Sorry, I'm actually going to keep this on the 0x, and we're going to use symmetry. So if you go to your modeling toolkit, you can see I have symmetry and I have world X already enabled. So that way, if this is on the X, now I can move this and we can have our line of symmetry. All right, so I'll bring this down like so, and just simply using these guides is going to be a significant help. Okay, now you're going to be using these guides in combination with your blueprints. So, you know, kind of taking a look at what you have here, we want to make sure we kind of get that front of the hood there, and then maybe bring this down and move this like so. Now we're going to use the edge copy and planar method, so you can kind of see I'm just really all I'm showing you is how helpful these 3D guides are. So I'm switching to vertex mode, and if you don't like, if these image planes are annoying you in 3D space or in your perspective view, you can simply select your cameras here, or excuse me, your image planes here, hit Control A, and we can go to image planes. We can just do looking through camera. Okay, and that should work fine. I think right now it's, I don't know if this is a little bit of a bug, but it should be showing it in the side view. But at least for now, that's fine. And what I can do is continue to edge copy this. So I hold shift right click, go to edge, hit W to move, and hold shift and just continue to edge copy. And then there you go. And then you can see now, again, it's like, oh crap, if I were to continue this down here, I wouldn't realize that I've lost essentially all of that width and that body and that curvature. So having these curve guides, I can catch that pretty much immediately and stay pretty consistent with the reference here. So again, we're just going to kind of move this in 3D space, and this is going to help very, very much and help significantly, right? So if I grab this image side, it's just being a little stubborn right now, so I'll work with this, and we can just kind of keep this here and keep this aligned with our reference, and I can kind of scale this so it's nice and flat, and I'm gonna actually keep this right here, right on the midpoint of the wheel well, and I'm gonna again continue to shift copy. So I'm gonna just shift copy a few times, shift copy, and all I'm doing is holding shift and move, shift and move. All right, and we want to eventually get down to the rear of the vehicle, and then we can jump to our perspective and make sure that we are matching our reference here. So I can kind of bring this up here and making sure things are looking good. But again, this is just quickly showing you how to use your guides to help with modeling. Now we can see, okay, it looks okay from the side view, but now we can see we need to bring this in, and using our guides is going to help us with that. So I'll bring this in, and we're just going to go to edge, and I can just kind of shift and move. And there you go, which is just extruding. And then I can hold shift and then scale, and you can see that I can just do this all the way up until the center. And then we get something like that. Okay, so we're starting with the main body, and I'm going to start next week, or the next video I should say, is going to show you the specific workflow for actually starting with modeling. But what I'm doing is, at least right now, showing you how to get your guides in place so you can begin the planar modeling process. Okay, so if we take a look now at the orthographic version, and I'll show you the differences with this vehicle, we have this one that I modeled specifically off of the orthographic images and a little bit of the curve work here. And what I found was, if I go here to the panels, and this is the next tip, right? So this is my last or fifth tip, is how to refine and use your camera matching to help maintain your form. So if I go back and show my image plane here, so I think I have this one, and I actually have that on this layer right here, so I can show that. So I have this set up, and you can see I'm actually going to just hide my curve groups here, and we can see that it's looking okay, but it's a little bit off actually from the reference. And then I realized that the blueprints weren't I didn't get it as wide as I should. So you're starting to notice some gaps here, or it's misalignments here and a little bit towards the back. So what I ended up doing was simply taking this vehicle, once I have it blocked out, and going to deform and just simply using a lattice. Okay, now the nice thing about a lattice, so I'll do 3 by 3 by 3. And it should be fine for what I need. And I can hold shift right, just right click. So hold right click, lattice point. And you can grab these points here, and I can start to move and make these adjustments here. And then as I'm making it a little bit wider, it's non-destructive, and then there we go. Those are the adjustments that I'm making. Then I can notice if my hood's a little bit too high. I can come in here and just kind of start flattening this out. So now you can see the power of using this camera reference here, this camera match reference, with the Blockout version, and using your guides to help you get there. Okay, so I can take this now, delete the history, But what I'm going to do is just hide this actually. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and delete history, then hide it, and then show the perspective version, which is this matched one. You can, if you remember, I just moved the camera, and then I'm just going to move this back into place. Okay, so you can see now what I do need to do is I will go ahead and actually go to display. I'll go to polygons and then enable backface culling. So I remove all of that junk that I need to. And you can see that the window's aligning pretty well. The windshield's aligning pretty well. And the body hood is aligning pretty well. So remember, the 5 key things are reference, which include blueprints and all sorts of different references, and collect that here and really understand the vehicle you're creating. Find camera matched reference. So that's going to help you model. Create your guides. If I hit Control-1 to isolate, to help you with your modeling process and with your guides in place. You're going to then create your planar modeling of the vehicle. And then once you do that, you're going to create and refine that form from your blockout phase. All right. So this is the ortho view, and this is the latticed version here. All right. So this is just a high-level introduction on how to get started with vehicle modeling. So in the next video, we're going to get into the real specifics of actually modeling, now that the groundwork has been laid out. So if you have any questions, comments, feedback, drop it down below, and we'll just keep going. Stay safe, and I'll see everybody around.